What's going on, everybody? I am Josh McCarty from Bill's Chat. This is Bill's Chat Live. With me tonight is not Luka. Back and better than ever is Stokes. He was with us last week. Stokes, you enjoyed your time here last week so much you decided to run it back?
Absolutely. That's why I'm here. I love it.
We appreciate you subbing in for Luka. Luka's kind of being a world traveler right now. For those of you that are familiar with our show, you know Luka got married over the summer, and he and his lovely wife are taking advantage of that honeymoon right now overseas. He might. It is actually like the middle of the night where he's at right now. Not to get too many details out there, but we have a fun game on the horizon to talk about, Stokes, an AFC East showdown as the Bills head to Foxborough this week to take on those New England Patriots. And it's a little bit weird to see the Patriots as bad as they are. But before we start getting into that game, we had something pop up yesterday that I want to get into with you, Stokes. And I think it's going to start a larger conversation about maybe some Bills roster needs. Bet Online posted odds about Davante Adams, the superstar wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders. And they said that the Bills were the most likely team to get him. Now, let's have a quick chat about Davante Adams and the Bills, because when a site like BetOnline posts that, they're not using sourcing for that. They're just trying to get people to take action on this, come to their site, and then place bigger money bets on other things. But it at least sparks a conversation in your brain, knowing what we've seen from the Bills offense this season so far, knowing that the Bills at least kicked the tires on DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. How interested would you be, Stokes, in the Bills acquiring a player like Davante Adams?
I wouldn't say very interested because I mean
Really?
Davante Adams, he is a fantastic route runner, like one of the best in the NFL. But I feel like he's a target hog, just like Stephon Diggs is. So I feel like it would be really weird to see how an offense can be put together with a guy of his talents, especially when there's other targets that I feel deserve opportunities as well. So I think it would be cool to have him, but I don't think that it would end up being a situation where it would be beneficial to the team. I feel like we would be misusing him if we're not throwing him the ball, 35-40% of the time.
Nancy's in chat tonight. Nancy, we always appreciate you hanging out with us. You're one of our regulars, and we certainly enjoy spending our Friday evenings with you and everybody else who's choosing to spend these Friday nights with us. So I'm on the polar opposite side, Stokes. I would love to see the Bills do this. And I think some of the similarities you bring up with Adams and Diggs, it is very true. And there's some redundancy in the skill set. But I just look at it very simplistically. We know how well Josh Allen is at getting the ball to Stephon Diggs. And for whatever reason, he has not been able to funnel targets to other weapons in this offense successfully like he has Diggs. And having someone like Davante Adams could make this offense that much more explosive. I will say the initial pushback you get, as Bob Crane says, Justin Shorter. Maybe next year, Bob. Maybe next year. Maybe next year will be Justin Shorter's year. The initial pushback you get is the salary. And I want to say, I think that's overblown. I understand Davante Adams is an expensive receiver, but when you look under the hood of his current deal with the Raiders, his base salary this year, which is all that the team trading for him would be responsible for, is only $6 million. And with 6 of the 17 games already played, and you figure if the Bills trade for him, it's not going to be before this Sunday's game that the Raiders play against the Bears. The Bills would be on the hook for a cap figure of just north of $3 million. That's perfectly doable. A name that's thrown around is Hunter Renfrow. Davante Adams is very similar in price to Hunter Renfrow as far as cap goes. Another name that's thrown around is Jerry Jeudy. That doesn't interest me too much. I don't think he's that good of a player, quite honestly. I think it's a little bit more sizzle and not a lot of stake there with Jerry Jeudy because he's a first-round player from Alabama. Financially speaking, I think the Bills could make it work, Stokes. If you could get yourself in my mindset of being okay with going after Davante Adams, how much compensation would you be willing to give up draft pick wise to get a player that's 31 years old?
If we're doing it, I would say probably a third round pick just because of his age and because we would likely have him for 2 seasons. I don't think a first or second round pick would be something that would be worth it. But I mean, it all depends on what it's going to end up being because like if you tell me that he would be the missing piece to the Bills winning the Super Bowl, there isn't a price I wouldn't pay. I would give up the first round picks for the next 3 seasons if it meant that the Bills were going to win a Super Bowl. So that's where it gets a little tough for me. He's 31 years old. I don't think he's going to drop off just because his skill set is one that I think is going to continue to translate for the next few years. So it's not like he is built on speed and it's gonna, when it's not there, he's going to be bad. But I just, it's just hard to get past that, when you're considering draft compensation.
So if it's not Davante Adams, and look, neither one of us are predicting this is going to happen, but when you get a gift in your lap of a bet online posting that, we're going to take advantage of the gift. If it's not Davante Adams, what position would it be, Stokes? The trade deadline is coming up in less than 2 weeks. The Bills have 2 games to go before the trade deadline. We now have a 6-game sample size of these 2023 Buffalo Bills. And unfortunately, we have a long list of players that are gone that are not coming back. Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, Daquan Jones. And we have a sample size of this offense, what it looks like. Joshua, he just said, yes, exactly. The contract this year is not the problem. I think it really is one, are the Raiders truly willing to trade him? They are a 3-3 football team that's in Chicago this week, so they could be 4-3. And as a 4-3 football team going to trade their best weapon? I find that hard to believe. It really does come down to, like Stokes said, if they want a 1, that gets tricky. You could always do it like, hey, here's a 2nd-round pick. And if the Bills win the Super Bowl, it becomes a 1st-round pick. Who wouldn't sign for giving up that 1st-round pick? I know I would. But let's get back to that question I was aiming down to there, Stokes. If it's not Davante Adams, knowing what you know about this team, knowing about the players that are already gone, how aggressive do you personally want Brandon Beane to be looking to improve this version of the Buffalo Bills?
The only position that I would actually want them to trade for is corner, and it has nothing to do with whether it's Kyrie Elam, Christian Benford, Dane Jackson. Like the difference is, I just think that the Bills, if this season's going to unravel, it's going to be because we can't cover the guys on the outside. That's the only way I can see it unraveling, because we have so much depth on the defensive line. We have linebackers that we are comfortable with now all of a sudden, and then at a safety, of course, you're dealing with Poyer and Hyde in their age and their myriad of injuries, but you have guys in-house that you feel fairly comfortable with throwing out there and that you can get you through a game or 2 or 3. The corners, I like Benford, he's good, but I don't know how top end he can be. Dane Jackson is Dane Jackson. He's always going to be Dane Jackson. He is what he is. Kyrie Elam has shown that for whatever reason, he can't get through whatever it is that's in his head or in his ability to cover wide receivers. Like that's the only position like I feel would be something that's worthy of trading for. But I mean, if you tell me you're going to get a high end player at any position, I mean, I'd listen to it. But if it's going to be one, I think corner's got to be it.
I mean, Andre's got a great point. If Aaron Donald becomes available,
I mean,
let's go
that's
for
cool.
it.
Bring him.
Let's piggyback off the cornerback conversation, because I think the most popular name out there that gets floated around is Patrick Surtain in Denver. And that makes sense. They're a 1-win football team. If they could be trying to compile assets, they had to give up assets to get Sean Payton. They had to give up assets to get Russell Wilson. So right now the cupboard is bare. If they're looking for a full-fledged rebuild, that makes sense. But Benjamin Albright, who covers the Broncos and covers the NFL, has flatly said that as many players that are available in Denver, Pat Surtain is not one of them. And that makes sense. He's young, he's excellent, he's on his rookie deal. Outside of that, Stokes, it's hard to find an impact cover guy that a team would be willing to get rid of, because it has to be the right situation on a bad team where they're willing to offload a player that can still play at a high level. One name that got brought up this week, while not on the same level as Pat Surtain, is Dante Jackson, the speedy cornerback in Carolina. And he's played in Carolina since 2018, the year after Sean McDermott left. Sean McDermott became the Bills coach in 2017, but Eric Washington was his defensive coordinator. Maybe similar to Kyrie Elam, Dante Jackson is a player that has a lot of speed. He's a veteran. He's not somebody that's going to come in and be Sauce Gardner and shut down one side of the field, but he is somebody that's veteran insurance, understands a similar scheme. And I think he's the type of player that you could probably get for like a day 3 pick swap, where you just are absorbing salary and nothing too massive as far as that goes. That would interest me as Kyer Elam insurance, because we're out of mulligans at cornerback right now. Tre'Davious White's gone. I feel okay with Dane Jackson and Christian Benford as the starting cornerbacks, but in the last 2 weeks, we've seen both of those players miss time. And we're only one of those guys away from Kyer Elam having to be on the field, and that quite honestly has not gone well. So getting Davante Jackson in-house is something I would be in favor of as added insurance. What do you think about that player, or maybe larger question, a player like that who is not a shutdown cornerback, an all-pro cornerback, but just veteran insurance?
Yeah, I think a player that is like that would work. The most important thing I feel would be not trying to make someone fit a different scheme there. If the corner that you're looking at is mainly a man corner, I don't think it's worth it to have him on this team, because he's going to you're going to try and fit a square peg into a round hole. We need a zone corner. So if they're good at playing zone, they've been playing zone for many years. Like you said, Davante Jackson, similar system. If that is how it works, then that would be a perfect transition. I mean, the Panther Bills pipeline, I mean, keep it going. That's what they do. So that would be great in my opinion. I feel like Dante Jackson, he's a fast guy. So when we're dealing with the other team in the AFC East that's competing with the Bills, that's the Dolphins. If you need a guy of that caliber speed wise, in order to stay with those guys in many respects. I mean, we dismantled them a couple of weeks ago, but that's still that one game, that one sample. So that would be great. My main takeaway would be, as long as a guy fits a zone scheme and that is what he's used to, we don't want a guy that's going to take 4, 5, 6 games to figure out how he fits in this system. We need plug and play. Get Kyer Elam. I feel so bad saying get him off the field, because I think the best way he's going to learn and get better is by playing against these NFL caliber players. But like, if he's hurting the team, then he can't get that season.
It's very tricky. And Roy Collins goes where I want to go next, because we all talk about that Panthers Bills connection, and there have been a lot of those, and that makes sense with Bean and McDermott coming from Carolina. But there's been players along the way that have no attachment to any of those guys from Carolina, but they still roll their eyes. And like Daquan Jones came from Carolina, and that worked out great, and it had nothing to do with McDermott coaching there. But another team with a connection to McDermott and Bean is the Giants, with Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. And Adoree Jackson is a similar player to Davante Jackson, although they do run a lot more man in Wink Martindale's system. And our guy Roy Collins is in chat and brings that up. I think between those two corners, I would prefer Davante Jackson. But Roy, you did spin this conversation in a way I want to go next. We have to do it, Stokes. Every trade deadline, it's should the Bills trade for a running back? And Saquon Barkley is out there. And, he came out today and said he doesn't want to be traded, but their season is going nowhere. There is rumblings out there for like the 5th year in a row that Derrick Henry could be traded. We know the Bills have already lost Damian Harris. We've seen some good things from James Cook, but I don't think we've seen some great things from James Cook just yet. Where would you be on the Bills trading for a running back if the price they paid to trade for him as far as trade compensation went was very, very minimal?
No, I love running backs and I love their value, but I think you just ride with James Cook, and Latavius Murray's giving you some really, really good production when he's out there and playing, and he's running hard, and it's really, really nice to watch. I don't think it is worth it at this point to trade for a running back. Just let the guys that are there do what they're going to do. And besides, having James Cook, building with James Cook, I think that's going to make you better off in the long run.
So Joshua Richardson says, I'm trading for Barkley or Adams. I mean, it sounds great. I would certainly prefer the wide receiver over the running back too. I'm with Stokes. I just don't think on this team a running back really moves the meter that much. And just look at Indianapolis. They lost what many consider to be the best pure runner in football, Jonathan Taylor. And then Zach Moss goes in there and is among the league leaders in rushing. And they still turn around and decide to pay Jonathan Taylor. I think that the Bills would be A-okay if something happened to James Cook rolling with Latavius Murray and some combination of Ty Johnson or whoever off the street they need to get to. Trey Williams says cornerback is a must, right? We have 0 uninjured cornerbacks on the roster. We're not winning a Super Bowl with Dane Jackson as the number 2. Well, not with that attitude, Trey. I will say if you think about it like this, the Bills came into the season, Stokes, with Christian Benford and Tre'Davious White as the starting cornerbacks. And if you were just to draw up the perfect midseason cornerback you could trade for that's realistic, so eliminating the guys like Tariq Woolen or Sauce Gardner or superstars, just like, okay, we need to add somebody to this team that knows the system, has starting experience, and can hold it down and play at a starter's level. The Bills have the perfect guy on their roster. They have Dane Jackson, who's 26 years old, has nearly 30 starts in the NFL, all in Sean McDermott's system, and has been a starter on some very high-end defenses for these Buffalo Bills. As long as Dane Jackson stays healthy, I think the Bills are probably fine at cornerback. Do they have Sauce Gardner and Reed? Absolutely not. But I don't think cornerback will be a weakness. My concern, I think, is where yours is, where it's what happens if we see what we've already seen, Benford and Dane Jackson go down, and then you're left with Kyer Elam on the field. It's all fun to talk about. I enjoy trade deadline talk, Stokes, but realistically speaking, I don't think the Bills are probably going to do anything.
No, I mean they don't tend to, and that's okay. It gives us a lot of fodder to pie in the sky attitude and think about what they should or could do. But I mean, I guess from their perspective, like whoever they trade for, it's a middle of the season adjustment. They may not be able to be the type of impact that they were where they were here because they still have to learn everything about this team and their system, all in the matter of weeks. So I get it. I get why there's not a lot of like big moves in the NFL, just because you only have so few games after the deadline to make a big splash. So I get it. I'd like it if we added somebody, but I get it.
Andre wants to know, would you give a first for Denver's cornerback? Absolutely, I would give a first for Patrick Surtain. I'd consider giving 2 firsts for Patrick Surtain because I expect these firsts to be late. But as we talked about a little bit earlier, Andre, you probably weren't here yet. Appreciate you hanging out. He is not available, according to Benjamin Albright. So I think that's a little bit more generated on the Twitter streets than it really is as far as like realistic trade opportunities. But thanks again for hanging out. We appreciate all of you. And Stokes, as fun as the trade deadline is, we have a game to talk about. The Buffalo Bills head to New England this week, and the Bills are 4-2. It kind of feels like they're coming off of a loss. That's how I think at least some of the fan base is feeling after that jarring, barely win against the Giants when they were 2 touchdown favorites and they end up winning the game by 1 yard. Where are you at emotionally with this team after what we have seen these last 3 weeks, going back to the blowout win over the flavor of the week Miami Dolphins, who have gone on to look like maybe the best team in the league, and then losing in London in a game that really wasn't as competitive as the score showed to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then following that up with a game that they won by an eyelash against the New York Giants team that was playing with almost as many backups as starters? Where's your confidence level at, Stokes?
It is where it has been, but admittedly, after what happened with Miami, it feels like there was just 2 weeks where the Bills just looked really, really bad, essentially. And I'm glad we survived that one this past week. So I'm glad we're back at 1:00. This 1:00. We did all right in the games we played at 1:00, and then the games that are standalone. Unfortunately, we have one Thursday, but the standalone games, it seems like they've just been different for the Bills so far. I don't know, maybe that's just coincidence, but it's I still feel the same confidence level. I still feel like the Bills are still one of the best teams in the NFL, and they've just got to get out of their own way, whether it's scheme, whether it's figuring out how they're going to call their plays. But once they get out of their own way, they just let their talent take over. Like, they are really, really, really difficult to beat.
I thought that Giants game was just so weird because on the surface, I'm with Roy. Roy has a great point here. Going into the fourth quarter with 0 points, you're like, what's going on with this offense? And there's really no way to positively spin that. And I'm certainly not going to try to. But when you look back at the first drive, he has Gabe Davis open across the middle and the feet get tangled with the cornerback. And then the second or third drive, a big explosive play to Gabe Davis, who fumbles the ball. I think it was the second drive. He had Diggs open and his feet got tangled, or maybe it was Hardy. I did not go back and rewatch this game, folks. There was just no desire on my part to do that. And then when you look at what happened in the second half, where the Bills went into halftime with 0 points, the Bills only had 3 drives in the entire second half, and they were all 3 scoring drives. You had the touchdown, the initial touchdown that was the first play of the fourth quarter to Deontay Hardy. You had the second drive, which was the amazing touchdown pass to Quentin Morris. And then the third drive was the missed field goal by Tyler Bass. Now, granted, the Bills didn't have to go very far on that drive. In fact, they went 3 and out because of where they took over with the ball. But I think it was such a weird game. There were so few possessions by the Bills that I'm not in panic mode. And it sure felt like the offense found something in the third quarter. But in general, I will say, Stokes, I'm a little concerned that this team might be a little bit too Allen to Diggs centric. And I know that was a concern for a lot of us going into the offseason. We have to upgrade the weapons. We saw what Cincinnati looked like in the playoffs all week long, saying, man, they have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase, all these weapons. And we really have Stephon Diggs. And it's like, what else after that? There's still some folks hanging on to the idea that Gabe Davis is a high-end number 2. I am certainly not in that camp. I believe that the one guy that has a chance on this roster to change that is Dalton Kincaid. I still think he has high-end weapon potential. I think we're just scratching the surface of what he can be, and he can certainly change that as soon as this year. But in my opinion, I think even guys like Knox and Davis have kind of already shown us who they are, and it's not superstars. I think that they are pretty much average-ish players that can have above-average games. Where are you at with the weapons the Bills have, and how good do you think this offense can be? And I guess part 3 of that question is it too Diggs-centric?
I mean, I guess I'll answer the last part first. I feel like it is, but at the same time, when you're watching throws to Diggs, it isn't like he's throwing a bunch of them. Unless he's throwing deep, he's not throwing a bunch of them into windows where Diggs isn't open or it looks like it. So that's where it gets a little tricky because, yeah, if Diggs has one-on-one, my thought process is he's better than the guy he's running against. So it makes sense. He is the correct matchup when he's one-on-one. So why not throw Diggs his way? However, there are other people who are probably just as open or maybe getting open, and they're not going to get better unless they get opportunities, in my opinion. So when you have situations where that conundrum that's in, whether it's Josh Allen's head or whether it's in Dorsey's head, like I feel like sometimes what the narrative around Stephon Diggs can get into their head is where, you know, we want to make sure Diggs is getting the rock because we're worried about what the media may say if Diggs has a bad game or something like that, and they can say all day that it isn't part of their thought process, but sometimes it just feels that way, where they just go to them 4 straight plays, and it's like, hey, you know, there are other people out there. But I am in alignment with you that Dalton Kincaid would be the guy that you see that's going to be the matchup problem. Gabe Davis, it just seems like it's been he's just too inconsistent, and there have been so many opportunities for him to take charge and be that number 2 wide receiver that we want him to be, but it just seems like it's just a flash here and there. Like, granted, those flashes are flashes, and that's great, but that I don't know whether that's the type of player you want as the number 2 wide receiver in your squad.
No, I'm with you. And I think that's the issue with Gabe Davis is when you add it up at the end of the year, it looks great. It's like, oh, he's going to have 800 to 900 yards. And he's going to probably push 10 touchdowns because of just how much this offense in general scores. And he is the number 2 targeted offensive player in this passing game. But to your point, it's 32 and then 92. And then it's 35, 61, 1 catch for 35, 3 for 61 against Miami in a game that was points galore. And then he comes back with 6 for 100 against Jacksonville before coming back. And then last week against the Giants, 3 for 21 against a Giants secondary that was already bad. Adoree Jackson is not having a good year. Deontay Banks is a rookie. They lost Adoree Jackson mid-game. They lost their slot cornerback mid-game. The offense was just begging for somebody to step up, and Gabe Davis can't do it. I think in true Gabe Davis fashion, Stokes, he's very likely to go off for 150 and 2 touchdowns this week. And the people in Gabe Davis's corner will say, aha, there's the guy. Doubters are awfully quiet this week. But then it'll be 3 more games of 30, 30, 30. And by the end of the season, it'll look great when you add it up. But it's just too much of a roller coaster. our guy Costa, who we know studies these numbers very, very religiously, says the Patriots against wide receiver ones this year. A.J. Brown, 79, Hill, 40, Garrett Wilson, 48, CeeDee Lamb, 36, Chris Olave, 12, Davante Adams, 29. That's really good. That's really good insight because, and he says the Pats are 30th against wide receiver twos. Because for the longest time, Stokes, the calling card on Bill Belichick was he was going to make you play left-handed. If you were the Tennessee Titans, he was going to do everything he could to take away Derrick Henry. If you were the Buffalo Bills of the early 2000s, he was going to take away Eric Moulds and make you throw to Josh Reed and Bobby Shaw. And he doesn't have the horses he used to have. He doesn't have Ty Law or Stephon Gilmore anymore. But he is, I think, and he hasn't been overly successful in his history against Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, but I think his number one goal this week is going to be to make Josh Allen look for throws outside of Josh Allen or outside of Stephon Diggs. And to me, that comes down to two players, Gabe Davis, or do we finally get the Dalton Kincaid game? What do you think, Stokes?
My thought process would be is probably going to be a Gabe Davis type of game. But I also think that Diggs is going to get his. Those numbers make sense, and I feel like Belichick he has a way of taking care of your number one option, but I still feel like it'll probably be forced to Diggs and more than enough to get him his 10 targets. Like he's going to get 10 targets no matter who he's up against. So that's just going to happen. But this definitely feels like a Gabe Davis type of game. But whether he's the one that's effectively scoring the touchdowns or whether it's a situation where he gets a big gain and then it's a shorter touchdown to hopefully it is Kincaid. That would be wonderful. I could see one of the slot receivers getting 2 touchdowns this game. That's my little mental prediction. The slot receivers are going to get in twice.
It's funny you mentioned the slot receivers because I put this stat out from Bill's Chat Pod Twitter earlier. When Deontay Hardy's on the field, Stokes, the Bills pass 82% of the time. That feels like a tell to me. And I know he's a smaller guy. He's kind of a gadget guy. But by comparison, I went back and checked. And Isaiah McKenzie, who I think is a similar player, played a similar role in this offense. Under Ken Dorsey last year, when he was on the field, the Bills passed 73% of the time. That's very high. When you go back to 2021, though, under Brian Daboll, when Isaiah McKenzie was on the field, the Bills only passed 59% of the time. And I think that is one concern with Ken Dorsey, where I know the stats are similar, but Brian Daboll just seemed to have a little bit better grasp on this is what we do, but this is also what our trends are. So we have to make sure we're staying in front of our trends. Right now, my biggest complaint with Ken Dorsey, I think he gets a little bit too predictable. I don't think he's a great play caller, and I do think things like Deontay Hardy being on the field and it's 80+% pass is a sign that maybe he needs to find ways to self-scout a little bit. And just for what it's worth, Trent Sherfield is actually outsnapping Hardy and Shakir. He has 134 snaps, 52% run. Shakir has 94 snaps, but Shakir is like the new Jake Kumaro. When he's on the field, you can just assume it's a run. 64% of the time, it's a run play. Stokes, does all of that read like a tell to you, or are you going to tell me to calm down? It's only 6 games.
I mean, Hardy for sure. I mean, it makes sense. You don't think that your 5'6", 5'7" wide receiver is going to be able to get down and block a safety or a corner. So that is a sensible, I guess, tell, but it still doesn't make it great. So either run the ball more or get him off the field, even though he's a good weapon. So maybe when you're in a situation where they know you're passing, you can still out execute them even if they know what's coming. So I think that Hardy, he needs more opportunities to fit whatever it is his role is in the offense. When he was brought here, the thought process was, hey, he was going to get some play, get some opportunities to do a little bit more than just get the ball behind the line of scrimmage or a 1 yard downfield and make something happen. But in the end, I feel like when the slot receivers, as Bob mentioned, them being non-existent in the offense, I mean, that's a valid response, but it doesn't mean that it can't change. Rather, there's still 30 targets that don't go to Stephon Diggs. It's just a matter of how spread out they are.
Yeah, and I will say, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to New England. I'm perfectly aware of the fact the Bills won by 1 yard last week against a team they were 2 touchdown favorites against. But I think if there was a week to figure your things out on offense, this might be it because I don't expect this Patriots team to put up a lot of points on the Bills, Stokes. They have 20 points in their last 3 games combined. 2 of the last 3 games, they have scored either 3 points or 0 points. Mac Jones, who in his rookie year brought the Patriots to the playoffs, looked like he was going on his way to being the best quarterback from that draft. In his last 5 games, he's averaging 158 yards per game, 2 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Not averaging that. He has a total of 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And those are games that the Patriots have gotten their doors blown off in. They have blowout losses to Dallas, blowout losses to the Saints, blowout losses. I'm trying to remember who the other team was in there. But those are game scripts where the quarterback should be able to get some empty calorie throws. You're down by 30 in the fourth quarter. Check it down for 10 yards. Move the ball. Get some freebies. We've seen Kirk Cousins live off of that in his career. It's not going well for Mac Jones at all in New England, Stokes. I think there were some signs this offseason that they may not know what they're doing when they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster instead of Jacoby Myers. They decide they want to build their offense around 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. I don't see any explosive players on this offense. I see a bunch of role players that all can do maybe one thing pretty good, but none of them are well-rounded weapons. What do you think if the Patriots offense is going to have success this weekend? What does that even look like for them?
It's going to be pounding the football. Ramondre Stevens, he's a big guy. Ezekiel Elliott, he's a big guy. So if they're going to be competitive in this game, they're going to slow the game down and they're just going to try and force the run, and maybe it's 3 yards at a time, 3 yards at a time, and then it's just short yardage all the way down, and that's what's going to be. It can't and shouldn't ever be Mac Jones is going to beat you. It just doesn't make any logical sense. So that would be my expectation if they're going to stay in range in this game.
Yeah, and one thing that does help them in that regard is defensive tackle Ed Oliver has been ruled out for this game. He is not going to play. He was on the practice field today, stretching and warming up with the Bills, even though he's listed as a non-participant in practice. I'm wondering if he is just, it's one of those situations where with the short turnaround, the game on Thursday, they just wanted Ed Oliver to have a few more days before testing out that injury. We shall see. But I think Stokes, even with Poona Ford and Tim Settle and Jordan Phillips, the Bills are probably in good enough shape there. I'm with you. I think the path is the running game. And I will say the Patriots do have a little bit of a wild card up their sleeve in quarterback Malik Cunningham, because he's a guy that put up absurd rushing production in college. He was their number 2 quarterback last week. He's a guy that I think they've been trying to slowly get developed into the offense, and people covering the Patriots are speculating that that is the preferred quarterback for Bill O'Brien. Any week now, they think he could take over the reins from Mac Jones, although they don't think it'll happen as early as this week. I think he's a guy they're going to sprinkle in. And if the Bills are unable to stop the run early, which was the one path you mentioned that I agree with, I think you could see Malik Cunningham come in, and I don't want to call it like a full-fledged wildcat, but maybe some read option, and we'll see if he can throw the ball at the NFL level. I don't really know. He went undrafted for a reason. But I think that's at least something. That's one trick the Pats can play, but I don't know. Otherwise, I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors with this offense. Anything on the Malik Cunningham idea, Stokes?
It could just be a matter of a package. If it's a situation where he's just on the field for a few plays here and there to try and add a little wrinkle to it, so that could be something to do, because Mac Jones he's not going to be the guy that's going to win the game for you. And if the run, as you said, if the run game is working, let's add another runner onto the field, and that way you can add some option, you can add some like quarterback power type of stuff in there. So it could be something that could be effective, and as well as wear down the Bills defense. So I mean we've seen it happen a couple times before, where it's just attacking the dam, and eventually the dam breaks. So I mean, it would make logical sense, especially if the offense looks shaky at all.
And as far as the Patriots go, they're a 1-5 football team. And it hasn't been great. And I will say sometimes records are deceiving. This is not one of those cases. The Patriots are every bit of a 1-5 football team. They are 31st in the league in points per game. On the defensive side, which is where that they usually hang their hat, they are 24th in defensive points per game. So that's not even going well. And they've lost their two best defensive players in Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, and Matthew Judon, their excellent edge rusher. And then it came out today that Uche, their other edge rusher, is going to miss this game. So the Patriots now on the edges against the Bills are going to be rushing Anthony Jennings and Dietrich Wise. Neither one of those players I would expect to be able to put too much pressure on the Bills. I think it's going to come from either A, blitzing, or B, Christian Barmore just having the game of his life. He's been a solid, not spectacular pro. J.C. Jackson is back in the fold. The Patriots traded for him. But I expect the Bills to outclass this team on both sides of the ball. I think that'll show in my prediction for this game. And I do think that the fact that the game against the Giants was close, and they still probably have that bad taste in their mouth from London 2 weeks ago, I think that could benefit the Bills in this spot where even after a win, I think they probably went back this week and they did a little bit of self-scouting, trying to figure out what's maybe been holding them back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my expectation too. I think they're going to use this as an opportunity. Well, I said it last week and felt it would be a get right game, but maybe this is a get right game after these last couple weeks. I can't see a path where this game is close. Like it doesn't make sense. If the offense is slow at all, that's the only way it happens. Because if the Bills get up two touchdowns or so, it's going to snowball because they're not going to be able to run the ball and keep the game slowed down. So they're going to have to pass, logically speaking, and it'll just get bad for them. So I think that would be the thought process for if I was speaking to the team. Hey, let's get out early, let's score some points, make them have to chase us, and it's going to be really, really bad because they can't.
Let's talk about Bill Belichick, Stokes, because he's a guy that tormented the Bills for 2 decades. He has a career coaching record of 219-64, and he has a case full of Super Bowl trophies. And it's amazing that we're talking about now, has he lost his fastball? But I think the conversation is warranted. Without Tom Brady, Bill Belichick's record is 80-93. He has a very similar career winning percentage without Tom Brady as Dick Duran. Like, just think about that for one moment. And this isn't a small sample size. 80-93, 173 games, that's basically 10 plus seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a large enough sample size. And it's not just, oh, well, it's a season in Cleveland where they were getting ready to move. No, it's more than that. There's a lot there without Tom Brady. And if it keeps going south, and if it ultimately ends up being that Robert Kraft has to force him out, because I think the general manager, Bill Belichick, has done more harm to this team than the head coach, although I think he's made some really boneheaded decisions with picking his staff. What is Bill Belichick's legacy, Stokes? Because 5 years ago, I think it would have been, I don't even know what the debate is. We know who the best coach of all time is. Let's talk about who the second best coach of all time is. That's how high I thought of Bill Belichick. Is he doing any damage to his long-term legacy the longer he coaches if he keeps not having success?
Yeah, I don't know about damage to the legacy. I think it would be a situation where he would lose credit for making the Patriots the dynasty that they were. It'll be like how the credit is given via a pie. It'll probably less 50-50 and more 60-70 on Brady and then 30 on Belichick. Because I mean, there's no way you can take away what he had done or for the Patriots. I mean, that's just, you can't take that away. But what you can take away is he wasn't the reason. It was more Tom Brady. So, but also, I don't know whether he cares a whole lot about that. That it could be a situation. It doesn't matter. I'll have the most wins. I'll have the most Super Bowl wins when it's all said and done. And that's just, you take it for what it is. But in the end, I feel like, Belichick, he has whatever his legacy is based on what how you feel about it, whether you consider the cheating or all the things that he did to try and get ahead of the people that he was facing. You make of it what you want as far as his legacy goes, but I don't think what's going on is going to affect it too much, except for how you view their dynastic.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they can't take his rings away from him. Last thing, Stokes, until we get to game predictions here. There was a time in our lives where going to New England just felt like, okay, do I even need to watch this game? The Bills are going to lose and lose badly. And that is just not the case. In fact, I think when you look at the two New England games this year, I'm happy this one's in New England when it is. They have played they have played 3 home games this year. They're 0-3 at home. The first two were competitive. They lost 25-20 to Philadelphia. That game a little closer than it really should have been. New England did a lot of weird things late to get back in that. Philadelphia kind of let them back in the game. Miami, same kind of game where you're watching it. You never feel like Miami's really in trouble, but somehow New England keeps it within one score. The last time the Patriots were at home, though, Stokes, was 2 weeks ago. They lost 34-0 to the New Orleans Saints. Not to the San Francisco 49ers, not to the Philadelphia Eagles, not to the Kansas City Chiefs, to the New Orleans Saints. And I think this is a fan base that's getting uneasy. I think this is a fan base that's getting frustrated. And I think there is a very high likelihood that if this game does not start off very strong for New England, that by the second quarter, this is a stadium that could be working in the Bills' favor as boos start showering down on this team. What do you think about the environment that is New England? And is there anything to be said for the fact that maybe the angst going on that side of the enemy lines is going to work in the Bills' favor this week?
Yeah, in when you look at it in a situation where they're bad now, like if the game is later on in the season in Foxborough, the fans probably wouldn't care as much because they feel like they're going to be going into it. Hey, we're playing for a draft pick, whereas where it is now, like they're gonna be mad at them for not being good. So yeah, as you mentioned, it's a great spot for this game to be in Foxborough because the fans like their first, second, three and out is going to be really bad, or they're going to be booing, and I think that definitely works in the Bills' favor. So yeah, I think this is a great time for this game to be in Foxborough, and yeah, as you also mentioned, like years and years past, it'd be, I what am I going to do at Sunday is instead of watching the Bills because they're going to get torched by the Patriots, and that's just not the case anymore, and I love it.
Roy Collins with a good question. Do we think Bill Belichick is on the hot seat? I think he is. I really do. I think, for one, we're talking about the city of Boston here. Like, they have high expectations in that city. It's a city that wants championships. It's not just the Patriots. It's the Celtics. It's the Red Sox. It's the Bruins. It's a city that demands excellence. And they're not a dumb sports city. They can see what's going on in New England. And I think the issue right now is this is a team that they're bad, and it's okay to be bad in the NFL, but what's the plan? There's no great players on this team. The one young great player they have, Christian Gonzalez, is gone for the year. Otherwise, it's been a team that's been poorly managed in the draft. They don't have a lot of young talent on this team. And there's really no light at the end of the tunnel because all that you can really hang your hat on is draft picks, and they haven't been good at drafting. So I do think that change is on the horizon. But Stokes, I will say, I can't see Robert Kraft firing Belichick. I think it'll be one of those situations where Robert Kraft goes into Bill Belichick and says, look, you can no longer be the GM of this team. And I think in Robert Kraft's mind, he's hoping that triggers Bill Belichick to say, well, I'm stepping down then. But if Bill Belichick doesn't go away on his own, it gets really tricky. What do you think, Stokes? Think he's on the hot seat?
I Yes, in the sense that you mentioned, I feel like Kraft would try to make it uncomfortable, forcing him to make a decision where he's going to retire. But I can't see it going over well at all, firing Bill Belichick. Like what he's done for the organization, what he's done for Robert Kraft, what he's done for everything about this. There's no logical way. I just can't see, even if they are 1-16, I can't see them firing him just because of what he's meant to the Patriots. So I think, as you mentioned, he would probably make it uncomfortable for Belichick. Say, hey, we're going to have another decision maker, and maybe he just hires someone outright, and he tries to nerf Belichick's decision making ability, and to just try and make it really uncomfortable for him, to make him want to quit rather than going the route and firing. Because if he quits, you can spin it to the fans. Hey, he was done here, and we wish him the best. If he goes to coach somewhere else, or if he's done coaching, he's always going to be a legend in New England, and we love him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think something has to change this offseason, and it's beautiful to take in, although it'll become a lot less beautiful if they get the first pick and they get their hands on Caleb Williams. But they have a lot of games to play before that happens. One game is coming up this weekend against those Buffalo Bills that we root for. Stokes, it is prediction time. Let us know your predictions in the chat. How is this game going to go down with the 4-2 Bills against the 1-5 New England Patriots? We mentioned Ed Oliver is out for the Patriots. They're going to be playing without Josh Uche, and then just hilariously, 1/4 of their roster is questionable. I do think Hunter Henry is probably on the doubtful side of questionable. Didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, got a limited session in on Friday. And then Juju Smith-Schuster is in the concussion protocol. He's had a couple of limited practices, so that at least tells you that he's far enough along where it could still work, but those are a couple names to keep an eye on. Costa chiming in with Bills 27-13. Stokes, how do you see this game going down?
I do think the Patriots are going to score a couple times in Foxborough. So, they're not going to score enough. The Bills are going to get out early, and maybe they're up, 24 to 7, something like that at halftime, and then the Bills tack on another couple. I'm calling for a 38-17 victory for the Bills.
38-17. Okay, well, I think that the Bills are going to have a get-right game offensively. Josh Allen has historically played very well against these Belichick Patriots and Belichick Patriot defenses that have had way more talent than this version. And I just think this is the type of offense that the Bills will just absolutely eat up. I heard a stat the other day, and I can't remember it verbatim now, but Mac Jones has never won a game outright. Matt Jones has never won a game outright as like a +3 underdog, which is just insane. I wish I knew the stat off the top of my head because it was a beautiful stat. But Roy Collins 31-16, Tony Santos 31-13. I'm assuming that means Bills. Here's what I think, Stokes. One, I agree with what Costa said. I do think we're going to see some secondary playmakers come into the mix for the Bills. I have a feeling it could be a Dalton Kincaid game. Because he's back. I think Knox might still be a little hampered by the hand injury. Quentin Morris is going to miss this game. I think Kincaid could be involved maybe in some deeper routes. Maybe they're going to put an emphasis on getting him the ball more because he has been open down the field. But like Stokes said, if Diggs is open, you're going to throw it to him and figure the rest out later. I don't think they're going to have trouble scoring on the Patriots. And conversely, I don't think they're going to have trouble stopping the Patriots. This Patriots team is a snowball going downhill, a snowball in the wrong direction. And I think this is just one of those seasons that is quickly getting out of hand for them. The Bills just need to make sure that they're on their P's and Q's. Don't let this game stay close through the second or third quarter. Just pound this team, remind them why they're a 1-5 football team. I think that's going to happen, and I think that the Bills are going to win this game 37-13. Stokes, do you want to show some range and go through and pick the entire NFL slate this weekend?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it quickly. We have last night in New Orleans, we have the Jaguars getting a 31-20. You're taking the Jags? Me too. 31-24. And I think the Saints will drop a touchdown pass in the end zone that could tie it up. I know. Bold strategy. Jaguars improved to 5-2 with that victory. Beautiful game in Baltimore. The Ravens are 4-2. They play host to the 5-1 Detroit Lions, playing without David Montgomery. Stokes, how do you see this game going down?
I love the Ravens. I'm going to choose the Ravens in this game. I think that the Lions, they are really good. They have a lot of good pieces on the team. It's weird seeing the Lions like getting this type of love, and Matt Campbell, he's Dan Campbell, not Matt Campbell. Yeah. Matt Campbell's the coach of Iowa State, I think. But Dan Campbell, anyway, he's got them rocking. But I don't think they're going to go into Baltimore and win.
I'm going to go the other way. I love what the Lions can do. I think the world is finding out just how good their offensive line is. I don't think the Ravens are very good. I think we overrated some of the weapons they brought in. I don't think Odell Beckham has much juice left. I don't think Aguilar is anything special. I love Zay Flowers. Not sure he's ready to carry a passing offense. And Rashad Bateman just has not been an A-plus player. I think it'll be a close game. I am concerned about no David Montgomery. It's going to be a time for Jahmyr Gibbs to step up, but I think the Lions come out of Baltimore with a win. Stokes, a game that I will probably watch none of, not only because it's when the Bills are on, but I just don't even know the appeal. You have the Chicago Bears with a quarterback named Badgett against the Las Vegas Raiders and Brian Hoyer starting a football game in 2023, Stokes. We talked about Davante Adams earlier. I would love to see the Raiders lose this game to make Davante Adams more realistically available in trade. But the Bears aren't good on offense or defense. The Raiders are at least respectable on offense. I would expect the Raiders to make just enough plays with guys like Max Crosby, Davante Adams, and Josh Jacobs. I think the Raiders squeak out a win, and I don't think I will watch a minute of that game.
No, I probably would avoid the highlights if I could, but that's just a couple of bad squads. I'm with you with the Raiders. Like when you talk about what the pieces that they have, I mean their best players are better than the Bears' best players, and the Bears' defense isn't very good. I'm thinking that Max Crosby is going to have a really big game against this young quarterback. I'm calling for 2 or more sacks from Crosby. And the Raiders are going to win this game comfortably.
Gardner Minshew and the Indianapolis Colts will take on what we think is going to be Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. Stokes, this Cleveland Browns defense might be very, very, very good. And if they get Deshaun Watson back and he plays up to at least a B-plus level of what we've seen before, the Browns are going to be a team to reckon with in the AFC. I'm impressed with how the Colts have played so far, especially without Anthony Richardson, but I just think top to bottom, the Browns are a better team. I think the Browns find a way to get to 4-2 with a win in Indy.
I'm going to go the other way. I think the Colts are going to find a way to win this game. I think that Shaq Leonard, he's starting to get a little bit better. They have a linebacking core that's really good. So I feel like the Colts are going to win this game. Jonathan Taylor, he's going to continue to progress. And Zach Moss, he was the multi winner of the Game Check Award in Bill's chat. So I think he's going to continue his resurgence. Those guys are going to control the game. I think they're going to beat the Browns.
I would love to be wrong. I have a soft spot in my heart for Indy because of my sister's family is big Colts fans. So I would love to be wrong on that one. And I also just hate the Browns because I think Deshaun Watson is probably a terrible person. All right, we have the 3-3 Washington Commanders traveling to the Meadowlands to take on the 1-5 New York Giants. We saw them last week. We don't know if it's going to be Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor. It feels like maybe it's trending toward Tyrod Taylor at this point. There is no Andrew Thomas. The Giants are still somewhat beat up. Stokes, who do you like in this NFC East matchup?
This one's easy. The Giants are not very good. Give me the Commanders.
Yeah, I think this is just one of those situations where until the Giants get Andrew Thomas back, they're just going to struggle to function offensively. Costa's going to pick the Giants to win 9-6. I do think there is a world where the Giants defense can really pressure Sam Howell and force him into mistakes. And we know Tyrod Taylor is not going to beat himself with mistakes. Last week's end of the second quarter, notwithstanding. But I think, the Giants, there's a path here for the Giants to just sit back and watch the Commanders beat themselves. But I don't feel good about predicting that. So for now, I think that the Commanders will win a very ugly game. And you and I will be forced to cheer up Costa Sunday night or Monday morning to make him feel better about his very disappointing football season that he's unfortunately going through. The Bills' next opponent, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are 3-2, and they play host to a surprising 3-3 Atlanta Falcons. Stokes, I'm going to say the Buccaneers win this game. I don't think the Buccaneers are that good, quite honestly. I don't think any team in the NFC South is that good, but I think that they've done a good job of beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And I am not buying into Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons. I think they have some good weapons. I don't think he can support those weapons. I don't think Arthur Smith is a very good coach. I think the Tampa Bay will find a way to win this game. Maybe a big day for Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield's been solid. Give me the Bucks.
Yeah, you know my love affair with Baker Mayfield. I love that guy. I love Bijan Robinson as well. But Desmond Ritter, like he is really not very good. And maybe that's just youth, but so far they're just not there. It just isn't a lot. I've been forced to watch a bit of Falcons football because of gambling purposes, but it's just you just don't have a lot of confidence in watching him throw the football. And he's got talented players to throw to. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, those are guys are actual matchup problems. You'd think, but he's just not very good. So I don't think they're going to win that game. Baker Mayfield, he's going to steer the ship correctly, and the Bucks are going to win that.
Stokes picking the Davante David Baker Mayfield team. I am shocked. Shocked, I say. All right, this could be a fun one in LA. The 3-3 Rams take on the 3-2 Steelers, fresh off of a bye week. This one feels like a trap game to me because when I look at what the Rams are doing, I think the Rams can certainly outscore the Steelers. TJ Watt got banged up in practice. Sounds like he's going to play, but how effective is he going to be? I think the Rams, if they're right with Cooper Kupp, can throw it all over the Steelers. I don't know how well the Steelers can move the ball, but this just feels like one of those classic games that Mike Tomlin finds a way to win. But I don't want to just predict that based off of a feeling. I think player for player, the Rams are the better team. I know it's a home game for LA, but I expect that place to be about 70% Steeler fans. You know what? Forget it. Steeler fans are going to take it over. I think Mike Tomlin finds a way to win this game, and the Steelers win an ugly one in LA.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like you look at the end of the season, and it's like the Steelers won 9 games. Like how? Like how does this happen? And it's just something about the way they play, the way he gets that team ready. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won the game just because it's just a Mike Tomlin type of thing. That when their backs are against the wall, they're going to win these ugly games. But I'm not picking them to win this game. I can't. I don't see it. Kenny Pickett is inconsistent. The Rams offense is starting to look a little bit more like the Rams offense. Now they won't have their running back, so
Kyron
that
Williams,
may
yeah.
that may make it a little bit difficult for him. But their passing game, Matthew Stafford, I think he's going to continue to get better with that team. So yeah.
All right. Speaking of the Rams, their division rivals will do battle in Seattle. The 3-2 Seahawks take on the 1-5 Cardinals. And look, I know Josh Dobbs has been a fun story. The Cardinals had that really fun win over the Dallas Cowboys, but they are not a very good football team. Kyler Murray had his 21-day window activated. I cannot see them putting him on the field when they have a real look at the number one and maybe even like another top 10 pick behind it, depending on how Houston does the rest of the way. Seattle's a team that can certainly exploit the Cardinals' poor secondary, and with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, exploit their inability to stop the run. I think the Seahawks win and probably win big.
Yep, I'm with you. Yeah, the Seahawks, they're a pretty good team. And the Cardinals, I think they're now fully on board this whole tank. Well, not even tank. They're just not good enough, and they're just continue to be not good enough.
The 1-5 Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson and Sean Payton play host to Jordan Love's 2-3 Green Bay Packers. I thought the Packers were going to be decent this year. Love had a couple of good games early, and he has crashed back down to earth in a big way. I think Russell Wilson's taking a lot of blame for a team that's not built very well. Russell Wilson's actually playing pretty decent football this year. I can't believe I'm going to do this because they are such a horrendous team. But I've seen so little from Jordan Love these last few weeks that I think Russell Wilson in Denver will find a way to make just enough plays to win this game. And I'm not sure that Jordan Love and the Packers are a team that can really take advantage of how bad that Broncos defense is. So I think the Broncos will actually win a football game this weekend, Stokes.
Darn, I was hoping you would go against them because that's who I'm picking as well. I don't think the Packers are the team that we thought they were going to be coming into the season. Love, he doesn't look terrible, but I just think as a whole the team doesn't look very cohesive. And the Broncos going into the season, I don't think they're as bad as we thought, or they're not as bad as we think they are right now. So I think they're going to win this game, and I think it's going to be ugly, like 18-12, something like that.
18-12. I mean, you should almost do a score prediction on that one. All right. Well, we've had some really crummy games so far, but this one is not one of them. We have the 5-1 Kansas City Chiefs playing host to the 2-3 LA Chargers. I am finally on the bandwagon with Luka. It took me about 2 years to get here. He's been telling me for years the Chargers will charger. They'll always charger. And I'm like, no, no, no. Look at all the weapons. Look how good they are. And you watch enough games, and it's like even against Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, they just had the Raiders trying to score a touchdown at the end. It's like, how is this even happening? And I can't in this spot give the Chargers a win. I think they'll keep it close. I think they'll find a way to lose a game in a painful way to the Chiefs. But at the end of the day, it's a trust game, right? Like, do I trust Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, or do I trust what's going on with the Chargers right now? And I don't even have to think about that one. Give me the Chiefs over the Chargers, and the Chargers fall to 2-4, which could be very, very interesting.
Yeah, they've dominated this division for a very very long time. I don't think that this specific game is going to change that. The Chiefs, they're just much more consistent than the Chargers. I think it'll be a fun game. I know Costa's picking the under. I don't know what the number is. I want to say it's close to 50, if not. But I think it's going to go over because the Chargers they are a lot of fun offensively. So my expectation is that this one is actually going to go over for the first time in the season for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to win the game.
Don't look now, but the Chiefs have an excellent defense. Like, it's the kind of defense that their offense is letting win games. People are like, why are the Chiefs not scoring this many points? Well, they don't have to. Their defense is excellent.
Yeah.
They've drafted very well, and they're seeing the fruits of that labor. We're going to save the Sunday night game for last because it really is the main event. We're going to go to the Monday night game in Minnesota. The 2-4 Minnesota Vikings take on a banged up San Francisco 49ers team that, as of Friday night, has not seen Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, or Trent Williams on the practice field. Stokes, I don't care. I know the Niners lost the game last week because they missed a field goal. I think even if those three players don't play, Trent Williams is the most concerning for me because as good as Christian McCaffrey is, I think they can generate offense without him. Trent Williams is just such an irreplaceable player. And I think if it's not Deebo Samuel, they'll have enough offense with George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. It really is Trent Williams. But in general, I don't think the Vikings are the type of defense that can really make them pay for missing those playmakers. And the Vikings are not a good team in general. This is an angry San Francisco 49ers team, and they are deep. And all those players I mentioned are on offense. I think their defense can absolutely dominate this matchup with the Vikings. It may not be pretty, but I think they're going to find a way to win this game regardless of who suits up.
Yeah, it's going to be prime time Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Also without Justin Jefferson, so that
Yeah.
is their irreplaceable player that they're missing. So this is going to be. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath. The Niners are going to do what they do and bludgeon the Vikings, I feel.
Well, we need Michael Buffer to come here because it is now time for the main event. The 5-1 Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts take on the 5-1 Miami Dolphins and Tua. If you're an Alabama football fan, you are enjoying the hell out of this because there's so many Crimson Tide players in this game that mattered. Stokes, this is a beautiful game. I think I've gone back and forth on this all week. I'm going to let you go first. How do you see this game playing out on Sunday Night Football?
Oh man, I like it's my heart versus my head in this situation because my heart just wants the Eagles to win this game because I want the Dolphins to lose as many games as possible. But I'm really nervous about the way Jalen Hurts is playing quarterback right now. I'm just really nervous about it, and I feel like the Dolphins, their offense is I don't know how they can be consistently stopped. I mean, the Bills may have just been a one-off because they've just been killing all defenses that they faced all year. Mike McDaniel is a wonderful game caller. The way he schemes things up for these guys is it's really really difficult to see how a team can stop them consistently. And I don't think this game is going to give anybody any sort of blueprint. The Dolphins are going to score a lot. I think they're going to go over 30, and I think they're going to win this game. But I really want them to lose.
I think the Dolphins could go over 30. I think the Dolphins can put up points on anybody. The Dolphins could have gone over 30 on the Bills. They just got so behind in that game that in the fourth quarter, when they were in field goal range, they were going for touchdowns and they would punt. They'd end up turning the ball over on fourth down. They could have gotten a couple more field goals and gotten close to 30. The problem is, as exciting as the Dolphins' offense is, their defense is atrocious. The Bills put up 48 on them, and we've seen the Bills have been inconsistent. And the Dolphins, for as good as their season has been, name the good team they've beaten. The Chargers are about to be a 2-4 football team. They beat the Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, and the New England Patriots. If you're going to do a reverse NFL power rankings, those might be 4 of the top 5 teams you would list, along with the Chicago Bears. The one good team they've played, the Bills, blew their doors off. I think the Eagles win this game, and I think neither one of these defenses will have too good of days, but I do trust the Eagles defense to get more stops than I trust the Dolphins defense to get. Maybe it'll look different for them when they get Jalen Ramsey back. If you're a Dolphins fan, that's what you have to hope for. But at this point in time, I think even if the Dolphins get 30, the Eagles will get close to 40. I think a big game from Jalen Hurts, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Stokes, this was a fun show to participate in, as Luka is probably sound asleep in the middle of the night over there in Europe. What's going on for you this weekend? Is there one particular NFL game outside of this Bills game that you're looking forward to the most?
Of the Sunday night game, that is going to be it's going to be must see television. I think it's going to be one of the more exciting games to watch, just to see what a team like a well constructed team like the Eagles, how they try to attack this Dolphins team. And as Costa mentioned there, yeah, those 15 play drives, they love to do them. They have those drives where it's like pound it, and then when it's 4th and 1, you can't stop what they're going to do. So yeah, I could see a couple of those happening and try and take some air out of the football and take some time off the clock. I could absolutely see it. I don't think that it'll be enough, but I'm just thrilled to see how the Eagles are going to try and defend this team.
Well, I'm thrilled to see you on Bills Chat. And if you want to see more of Stokes, you can see him Sunday morning on the Built-in Buffalo Tailgate Show, as he and a co-host to be named later. Is that how it's working? Okay, co-host to be named later. We'll be doing the pregame show for Bills Patriots. I'll be doing the Built-in Buffalo halftime show. I'll be live for the 10 minutes or so at halftime, breaking down the first half, talking about what to expect in the second half. And then Luka and I will be back on Bills Chat podcast, dropping Monday morning, everywhere your podcast can be found, video form on YouTube. And then Stokes and I will be back on Wednesday, which will be game eve, the day before the Bills take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, it moves quick on those Thursday night weeks. It's like you blink and it's already game day. Stokes, this was fun. Thanks again for filling in for Luka. We always appreciate you having you on the show. For Stokes, I got the point direction right this time. I am Josh McCarty. We will see you next week on Bills Chat Live.